Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I would like to welcome you to the Monday, August 8th, 2022 workshop session of the Carmel Clay School Board. May I have roll call, please, Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Madam President. Everyone is present and accounted for.
Great, thank you. Please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We're so excited. It's a big week here at Carmel Clay Schools as we gear up to welcome back over our 16,000 students. I know that we have so many who are already hard at work to get ready. We're going to hear about some of those actually later tonight. But first, I would like to turn it over for some really great presentations. Mr. Jim Inskeep.
Thank you, Mrs. Browning and Dr. Beresford and members of the board. Always a privilege and honor to be here to celebrate the accomplishments of some of our student athletes and coaches. And this evening is definitely one of those moments as we kind of go back in time, back to the start of the summer in June with our girls tennis team. So as I say a few remarks about them, I'd like for the members of that team and Coach Drudge to come forward to my left, your right, and stand here, and we'll brag about you. So this group of student athletes, our girls tennis program, won a second consecutive state championship on June 4th at Center Grove High School. The title was the 12th overall for the program and the 9th championship in the last 13 state tournaments. This group of girls finished the season with a wonderful 19-1 record, and they defeated Fishers in the state championship 5-0, South Bend St. Joseph 3-2 in the semifinals, and in the quarterfinals, Zionsville 5-0 as well. This group of young ladies represents Carmel High School at its best, and they also get it done in the classroom as our program had an overall GPA of 4.03 for last school year. So very, very impressive and at the high end. Coach Jen Drudge, who is an assistant coach with the program and a member of our high school staff, will come forward here to say a few things about who is with us this evening, and I'll talk about our seniors and where they're going.
Thank you, Mr. Inskeep. Thank you to the board for having us. As Mr. Inskeep said, this is a fabulous group of kids, both on the court and off the court, and represented Carmel High School, Carmel Clay Schools, and the city of Carmel just fantastically all season long. So it's a wonderful recognition for these girls tonight. And we have with us some of the members of the team. We have a few of our outgoing seniors who are already off to college. But with us this evening are current now seniors. Oh, current junior. We'll go with that first. Current junior, Nora Perkins. Please step forward. Current seniors, Allie Griffin. Alexa Lewis. And Elise Nelson. And graduating senior, now starting her freshman year in college. I'm going to ask Taya to come up and tell everyone where she's going to school and what she's planning on studying. Taya Bertolini.
Hi, I'm going to Indiana University and I'm studying business management.
And just to brag on Taya for a second, she also graduated with an IB diploma.
Thank you so much. We now have a couple more presentations. The Administrator of the Year, Principal of the Year, and Assistant Principal of the Year, Dr. Tom Ostrike.
Thank you very much, President Browning, and if you could please join me at the podium as we recognize our Administrators of the Year. So earlier this summer, we recognized our Teacher of the Year and our Classified Staff Person of the Year, and now we are going to recognize our Administrators of the Year. So first up, if Mrs. Amy Shear could please join me at the podium. Amy is our Carmel Clay Schools Administrator of the Year. Mrs. Shear serves as our Human Resources Coordinator with Carmel Clay Schools and has served in the district for the past 28 years. She graduated from Carmel High School and displays an incredible passion and pride for Carmel Clay Schools. She is the glue that keeps the human resources operating at a high level. She is responsible for so many important areas in the district, onboarding all of our new certified employees, taking care of employees when they have concerns and questions, and amongst many other responsibilities. Additionally, she's responsible for teacher contracts and puts everything in place for our Teacher of the Year recognition. Finally, she is an extremely hard worker, and despite her supervisor's directive not to bring her computer on vacation, she's always available 24/7 while on vacation or the weekends. You can often find her car in the parking lot here at our Education Services Center late at night. Additionally, this is something that runs in the family because her mom is here with us today, along with her dad, but Ina Van Dyne was our 1999 Carmel Clay Schools Teacher of the Year, and she is also joining us here today. So congratulations, Amy Shear, 2022 Administrator of the Year. Oh, let's take a quick one. Yeah, Amy, you can stand up there for a while. And at this time, would Mrs. Kathy Olson please join us at the podium? Kathy Olson is Carmel Clay Schools 2022 Principal of the Year. Kathy has served in the district for the past 24 years in various roles and is truly a collaborative and supportive leader. The care and love that she has for her students is evident. She takes time to get to know her students and families and has their best interest at heart. Kathy's professional approach is also known amongst leaders in the district, and her colleagues know they can always count on her when they need anything. Thank you, Kathy, for your leadership and collaboration over the years. We are lucky to have you serving as principal at Collegewood Elementary School and as well in Carmel Clay Schools. Congratulations. And finally, would Mrs. Amy Satoski please come to the podium? Amy is our 2022 Assistant Principal of the Year. Mrs. Satoski has taught and been an assistant principal in Carmel Clay Schools for the past 20 years. Amy stepped up big time to the plate this last school year, serving as interim principal at Town Meadow Elementary School during first semester. She created an outstanding leadership bridge for the staff and students and has worked hard to build strong, supportive relationships in a very short amount of time while maintaining stability for their school community. Her selfless leadership contribution should be celebrated and commended. Mrs. Satoski may also be the first administrator in Carmel Clay Schools to receive not only nominations for our Assistant Principal of the Year, but she also received nominations for our Principal of the Year as she served in that role first semester. Currently, as Assistant Principal at Town Meadow Elementary School, second semester, and this year, we are very proud of what you have done for our students, families, and our staff at Town Meadow Elementary School. Congratulations.
Congratulations again. We'll take a short break. If you guys, we would welcome you to stay for our meeting, but if you need to go, kids, you gotta get used to your new school bedtime again, right? So feel free to go if you need to. That's what my high school daughter's reaction was too when I told her that.
I think they could still get some court time before the sun goes down.
All right, we will now move into the next portion of our meeting for public comment. We don't have any of those tonight. We'll move into consent. Do I hear a motion to approve consent items? Sorry, second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, and then we will now vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. And do we have an exciting announcement today?
Absolutely. I'm very excited to share that Mrs. Catherine Gall is the new assistant principal at Clay Middle School. Mrs. Gall has over 18 years of experience and service in middle school, high school, and college classrooms among 3 states. Additionally, Catherine has taught Spanish and has served as the AVID coordinator at Clay Middle School for the past 7 years. Her work with our multilingual learners at Clay Middle School has been extraordinary, and her fluency in Spanish has been an invaluable tool while serving our multilingual families. When we had to reunify our students from Mohawk Trails Elementary School over to Clay Middle School, Catherine shined as a leader while stepping up and communicating with those multilingual learners and families. She turned many fears into smiles from both students and parents throughout her communication, direction, and leadership. Catherine earned her bachelor's degree from Butler University in International Business and Spanish, her teaching certification from Eastern Illinois University, sorry, Dr. B, and 2 master's degrees, one in Spanish literature from the University of Hawaii, where she also served as an adjunct professor, and finally, she earned her master's degree in education administration from Ball State University. Catherine is a consensus builder who is dependable, highly motivated, and compassionate. We are lucky to have her serving our students, staff, and families as the new assistant principal at Clay Middle School. Congratulations, Catherine. The last thing I'll add is she is here with her family, her husband, as well as her 2 boys, one who is a sophomore at Carmel High School who just made the JV soccer team. Congratulations. And her other son, yes, and her other son who is an 8th grader at Clay Middle School.
Congratulations.
Catherine, we have a tradition that new administrators will give a speech for about 20 minutes, kind of an acceptance speech if you're, but no, absolutely. But congratulations and welcome to the CCS administrative family.
Congratulations, we're glad. All right, we will now move on to our workshop topics. First one, we will start with school safety with Mr. David Woodward. I just gave you a promotion.
First of all, thanks for the invitation tonight. When we're talking school safety, it's always important, but never more so now than now, based on what's been happening nationally. we talk school safety. I want to talk about the fundamentals. What's the basis of what we do with regards to school safety at Carmel Clay School? And it's that we have a well-trained staff and student body. That is our ultimate goal, a well-trained staff and student body. We update our safety plans. I can tell you every school in the country has updated safety plans. But do you know what to do in the initial moments of a crisis? That's the absolute key when it comes to school safety. And that's the foundation of what we do here at Carmel Clay Schools. We train all of our staff. In fact, all of our SROs are here today, and you're going to learn more about each of them. But this week, they are presenting to hundreds and hundreds of staff members. We've presented to bus drivers, custodians, maintenance staff, food service. Every employee of Carmel Clay Schools receives a foundation of school safety training, unlike anywhere else. Part of that training is empowerment. We want our people to be empowered. They need to know what to do. They need to be empowered to do it. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. We also have 33 school safety specialists. That's someone who's been trained by the Department of Education for 5 days of minimum training with the fundamentals of school safety. What are the basic fundamentals that they need to know with regards to access control, drills, reunification? All of the fundamentals are reviewed by our safety specialists, and we have that resource in every one of our buildings, along with our SROs. Now that group gets together and meets monthly, and we share lessons learned within the buildings. Because what we see around the state and around the country really is things happen in silos. And if you aren't teaching one another your lessons learned, you're not taking things to scale. And in a school corporation this size, you need to share those lessons learned. And that's something that we've gotten very good at here in the last couple of years. So when we talk about training, there's no better way to train than drills. It's basically a controlled, safe way to teach the fundamentals of school safety. We want to teach physical safety to all of our kids and to all of our staff. We do the state required drills, but we also go beyond that with everything we do. For example, with a fire drill, we actually have staff who will stand in front of a door, in front of an exit, and say, this is not a route that you can take. You need to take another route. There's fire blocking this. And it makes them think, now where do we go? The whole reason for doing that is teaching them, again, I always say K through life safety. We don't want them to be robots where they get up and they know how to handle a fire drill in school, because everyone does. But what do they do when they're at a movie theater? What do they do when they're at the mall? What do they do when they're at home? Do they know, or are they prepared to handle a crisis in those other areas? So that's really, again, to the foundation of what we do. We do an all hazards approach. The big news topics are always violence. Reality is, statistically, we're way more likely to deal with other crises. I'm going to show you video from Henryville, Indiana, several years ago. This basically is their gymnasium, and now you see it, and now you don't. So everyone knows during a tornado watch, during a tornado warning, you get inside and you get covered, basically, right? But do you know that wide-span roofs are not a place to go? Your gyms, your auditoriums, those are not safe places. Those are things that we teach with our drills. All of our safe zones in our buildings have been reviewed and approved by an architect. So we have identified the safest areas in our buildings to go, rather than just say get inside and consider yourself safe. That's a key, and that's part of that training. I'm going to show you this picture. Most people won't recognize that, but that's Carmel High School from a few years ago, where we had a boiler explode. This lower picture, the only people who were in that building were Carmel Dad's Club and wrestling team. This lower picture shows the entrance that Carmel Dad's Club used to get into the gymnasium. They clearly could not get out that direction. So when we talk again, why do we do blocked exits? That's why we do it. We want our staff to be well trained. We want our students to be well trained. And we work with those groups that use our buildings after hours to understand that and to know where they need to go. So, for example, we've created after-hours guides and posted these throughout our buildings, your gymnasiums, your LGI rooms. It identifies the location of the nearest AED, identifies where your nearest safe zone is relative to where you're standing in that moment and you're looking at that sign. Also has the school name address to shave time off of a 911 call if you have an emergency, to let people know where you are. So it's training, and it's making people aware of their options. We want staff to call our lockdowns. Anyone can pull a fire drill. Anyone. Students can pull a fire drill. But for years and years, and still in most places in the United States, you still have to call the front desk and ask them to initiate a lockdown. Not at Carmel Clay Schools. Here, anyone is empowered, and anyone has the capability to access that PA and call a lockdown, shaving time off of a response and getting our kids safe. Our staff are underutilized. Most staff are underutilized. We urge ours to be empowered. When they see something, say something. If it doesn't feel right, it's not right. But they need to understand that they can be that squeaky wheel and point out those things that they may see. Report abnormalities. Document anything that you don't think is supposed to be there. Document graffiti. If you see students who are acting a certain way, we even talk to our bus drivers and our maintenance staff about this. If students are acting out of the norm, we want them to notify our SROs, our social workers, and our administrators, because we can help. We have the services to help, both with facilities and with people. Showing you a picture of a rock. What is this rock used for? Prop open a door. What happened in Uvalde last week? Someone came in and unlatched, unlocked a door. In the majority of these school shootings, people have entered in ways that they should not have been able to enter. Our staff is all trained to look for this, and when they see the rock, throw that rock. And if that rock comes back, you call me, you call an SRO, you call your safety specialist. We have the cameras, we can find out who's putting that rock there. This is unacceptable. I took this picture at a school, not here at Carmel Clay. There was a brick in front of a buzzer system that they paid thousands of dollars to install. That alone tells us they do not really care about safety. They talk about safety, but they don't really care about safety. At Carmel Clay Schools, all our staff, again, taught this is not acceptable. This summer, we had a construction worker at one of our elementary buildings use a cone to prop open a door. And I can tell you the frustration that we received. And I will go back. The construction worker did not know that there were students in the media center. Still not an excuse. That person was dealt with pretty swiftly by our facilities management. You cannot lock and prop doors. And so part of what we do, part of our training, empowering staff, move these things, notice these things. And if you don't, these issues will remain. Here's a blocked fire exit. This is a fire extinguisher, not at Carmel Clay Schools, but a picture I took that has been used already. And the casing is basically used as trash. That is an example of what we teach all of our people. Be aware. These things are unacceptable. You're telling people that safety is not important here. So it's part of that culture that we're teaching. Every staff here at Carmel Clay Schools. We do audits. And so I've walked around elementary buildings with a Reds hat on and found out how many people will stop me. I can tell you I ran into 4 people at an elementary building, and every one of them asked me, how can I help you? It was fantastic. This is an actual text, and before I go forward, I urge anyone in the public to not do this. I always do this in conjunction with administrators and with law enforcement. But when I do this, I want to be accosted. Now, this is an actual text message from a staff member at Carmel High School, Tunisia, who I think is fantastic. And Tunisia notes, "Hi, this is Tunisia. Some weird guy was here at the high school with his son, said he was with Carmel Security. Yes, I break into schools with my son on weekends. That's part of my job. The fact that she got this, when I first walked in, I said, hey, I'm with Carnival Security, here's my ID. I really appreciate your stopping me, this is awesome. And she looked at me, arms folded, and said, you do not look familiar to me, and you need to leave. That was fantastic. She then texted an SRO, and as you notice, she says some weird guy. She's a great judge of character, obviously, but she's also very observant. And I can say that our custodial maintenance staff all are trained to be like this. Everyone throughout Carmel Clay Schools is trained to be observant and to address what they don't think is supposed to be there. I rewarded Tunisia with a Subway gift card to feed her for the month and presented that in front of her staff because it's that culture. That's what we want. That's what we're pushing. We have Stop the Bleed kits in every school where your AED is located, which is stationed nearby the gym, strategically. We also have Stop the Bleed kits in every classroom in Carmel Clay Schools. That was a collaboration and really a gift from the Carmel Fire Department, who was able to purchase Stop the Bleed kits in every classroom, put on every bus throughout Carmel Clay Schools. It also has a scanner. When you scan it, it actually trains you on how to use it. And on top of that, we do training with our school nurses for staff. We've done it here at ESC, and we'll do even more of that this year. One of our SROs is also a trained EMT. So we're going to do more and more of that training. So thank you to Carmel Fire Department for doing that. When I talk about training and you knowing what to do in the initial moments, I'm going to show you a video. First, I'm going to set this video up. There is a construction worker, this is just 2 weeks ago, who cuts his arm badly and is driving himself to the hospital and realizes he's not going to make it. He pulls into Cherry Tree Elementary and goes to the front, buzzes himself. You're going to see him collapse, and you're going to see the response of the principal at Cherry Tree Elementary, who's there working in the summer, not expecting anything like this. Now, the video I'm going to show you is not graphic. I have a different view, but we're certainly not going to show that one, A, for the privacy of the person who's injured, but also simply for courtesy for everyone here. He's clutching his arm. He's bleeding really bad. His shirt's pretty much covered in blood at this point. Now, Peter English, just a few weeks before, actually participated in an active shooter drill with our SROs and actually watched them apply tourniquets several times over the course of their training on top of his own. Now, you'll notice he didn't stop. He didn't try to usher him in. He immediately gets a kit. He has someone call 911, and he wraps this person up. I don't know what happens to him from here. I know Carmel Fire Department had suggested that it was potentially life-saving, but I can't say. I don't know what happened to the victim from this moment. But what I can tell you is that that is the response we want from an administrator. And if you're a parent, or if you're a board member, or if you're a staff member in this school corporation, that is exactly what we're pushing when we do training for all of our staff. We want them to know what to do in those initial moments of a crisis. And it was a perfect example right there with Peter English. So training's our baseline. We want everyone to know what to do in those immediate moments of a crisis. But that's not all that we do. We have received a grant from Department of Homeland Security over the last 2 years, approximately $100,000 each of those last 2 years. And with that, we've upgraded all of our cameras, not all, but we've updated cameras throughout the school corporation. And this year, we're actually updating some of those that are aging out. So our camera systems are much improved. Not only are the cameras themselves improved, the resolution, but we've also been able to install what we call suspect tracker. We can track someone as they walk into our buildings and pretty much track them throughout the school corporation, throughout the school. And all of that comes from things that our SROs have put in with our cameras. And it took quite a bit of work. So we appreciate you all for that. Also, communications with our radios. For years, our radios have basically been underutilized. So now, by deleting some channels and then adding some necessary channels, and how to use our radios, we are able to instantly notify a team of SROs to exactly where a crisis may be. We can shave up to 2 minutes off of a standard 911 call by utilizing the tools that we already had and weren't using effectively. We've added access control procedures throughout the school corporation, but it's not just physical. It's also in how we address our visitors to the buildings. So I'm going to show you a video that was actually created by our SROs.
Hi there, how can I help you?
I'm here to volunteer at the Media Center.
Okay, come on in. Can I get your name, please?
It's Officer Harris.
Do you have an ID?
Yes.
Can I see that, please? Sure. Can you scan that for me, please, right there? Thank you. You gotta tilt it. There we go. Thank you.
Good, how are you?
How can I help you?
Well, I'm here to volunteer at the Media Center.
Oh. Okay, you're good to go.
Thanks.
Okay.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, how are
How
you?
can I help you?
I'm volunteering at the Media Center.
You are? Oh, how about right here?
Ah,
This door's closer.
there it is.
All right.
You have to go around. This got door one. Go around. Yeah.
Remember, every school is a little bit different in the district, so please remember to follow your school's protocol.
We appreciate your cooperation in keeping our students and staff at Carmel Clay Schools safe.
Everybody learns differently. We could have easily made a video of a talking head telling you what to do or sent out an email, but another means to train and train and train. And special thanks to Emily Bauer, who really put that thing together and made it kind of flashy. So appreciate you, Emily. So we had a referendum passed a couple of years ago, and we had a 3-year plan to get an SRO in every building in Carmel Clay Schools. And this is year 3. And this is the year that we are able to have an SRO in every school building in Carmel Clay Schools. I cannot underestimate the value of this. Having a person whose sole job is safety in the building, whose sole job is protecting the children and protecting the staff, and they teach, and they mentor, and they do more and more every day. So to hear more about what our SROs do, I want to introduce Lieutenant Adam Miller.
Thank you. I think to truly appreciate where we are today, we need to go back to where we began. Around 2000, we had our juvenile detective was assigned to the high school. So one detective started off the high school, and that's how all this started. In 2005, we added SROs to the 3 middle schools. So there's a total of 4. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So we added slowly a couple uniformed police officers at the high school a couple years later, but it wasn't until the referendum passed in 2019 did it really take off. So we've gone from 1 to 4 to now you have 18 SROs, 1 for every building, 4 at the high school, 2 sergeants, and then myself in this unit. We could not do this without the support of the community, the cooperation of the Carmel Police Department, and Carmel Clay Schools. There's no way we could have done this without that collaboration with everyone. It's a huge undertaking, a unit of this size. Our department has been growing quite a bit. We've had some manpower issues, the struggles of a growing area, but they've been awesome about getting these SROs into the schools. It's a huge undertaking to sort of understand what makes an SRO. You have to first be on a department at least 2 years. So we're looking for somebody who's got some experience. That's a minimum. Most of them have a lot more. They have to volunteer. So it's just like if you're going for a specialty, a detective position, SWAT, any of our other specialties, they apply for it. It's a volunteer position. Once you volunteer, then you sit on through an interview. We do oral interviews with a board consisting of Carmel Clay Schools administrators, as well as the Carmel Police Department admin. And some of these SROs have had to interview several times. It's a competitive process. We can't just take everybody that puts in. So we're careful about who we select. And then once we select those, we're even more particular about what schools they go to. We don't just randomly place these SROs in schools. As you know, we have different personalities, whether it be the admin, the students, just the environment of each school is very different. We take a lot of time to determine where those SROs are going to go. We want to set the school and that SRO up for success. So a lot goes into it. But even then, once they're picked, there's a lot of training that goes into it. So we're members of the Indiana School Resource Officers Association, as well as the National Association of School Resource Officers. I can't say that 3 times fast, but that's what we do. And these organizations are great because they set a standard of excellence and professionalism for SROs, both in Indiana and across the country. With NASRO, Indiana has the largest contingent of NASRO members compared to other states in the country. So in Indiana, being an SRO is very important. It's taken seriously, and the amount of professionalism and training is very high. To give you an idea, once we selected our most recent SROs this summer, today's their first day. So as of today, we now have a full contingent of SROs. I'm very proud to say that. But to get us there, these officers went through a minimum of 100 hours of instruction specific to being a school resource officer. So this isn't just something we throw an officer into. Some departments around the country have to do that. They don't have enough officers to volunteer and go through that process. We're very fortunate that we have the number of officers we do that want to volunteer and take it that seriously. So you're getting a highly trained police officer in the school environment. And I think that's really important to state here, that this is a lot different than just seeing a uniform officer in the schools. They go through training, the NASRO model. It's a triad approach. If you see here, we have an educator, informal counselor, and law enforcement. And if you notice, the educator and informal counselor, that's our foundation. The vast majority of the work we do in the schools is mentoring these kids. In some of these schools, they have a male SRO. Sometimes that's one of the few male role models that school even has. It's a female-dominant profession in some of these schools. So it's really important because some of these kids don't have a good male role model, and some of our SROs have really fit that bill. Educator, we don't want to take anything away from the professional educators, but our SROs find ways to get in the classroom and share real-world experience with these kids. Several years ago, one of the teachers at the high school tasked me with coming into her physics class because I head up our accident investigation team that investigates fatal car crashes. So I got to go in there for several years in a row and teach a section of physics and trigonometry and how we use that science and math and apply it to real-world applications. If anything else, I implored these kids to pay attention to their teacher because you don't know when 20 years later you might need those skills again. So it was neat to share a police officer using stuff that they're learning in class. The kids loved it. I loved it. And that's what our SROs get. We want to get in the classrooms and work with these kids about life experience. Very little is really about law enforcement. Much of our law enforcement approach, it's the smallest of the 3 up there because most of the time you don't see it. over the summertime, we do the building assessments. On an annual basis, we'll do a building assessment. And I think that's very important to note of we're constantly looking for ways to make our buildings more secure. How can we protect the kids and the staff better? We're school resource officers. We're not just student resource officers. So we work with the staff, the kids, the parents. And if you think about it, we have a population of 17,000 students now. And you factor in the number of parents that go along with those kids. On a daily basis, our police officers are impacting over half the city's population. And I think if we look back over the last couple of years, not all communities have that connection between the police department and the citizens. And I can't say how strong that is here in Carmel to have the citizens that support the police because they know the police. And I think this is great with the kids too. We're getting kids that may not have had experiences with police officers, definitely not positive experiences. Here they are. So as they grow up, we're going to have more and more adults that have very positive experiences with police officers. So I just want to share that so you can see there's a lot of different roles to our SROs. And they're very passionate about what they do. They love kids. Just like our administrators and our teachers get involved in this, all of these officers have a passion for working with kids. And I think that's hugely important. But to see this number, there are very few departments or school districts in the state, let alone the country, that can say we've got an officer dedicated to every single school. So this is hugely important. And I want to thank you for your support. We love it. We love the collaboration. And we want to keep this going. When we talk about training, Uvalde happened right as we were getting out that last week of school. And we already had active shooter training planned. In fact, we're using Orchard Park Elementary. That's been a very effective tool for us, not just the SROs, but we've brought in the rest of the department. I think it's very important for them to train in a school environment because it's not just us that's responding. You're going to have a lot of officers. And to illustrate how we do that training, Fox 59 came out and they did some filming that day. You're going to recognize a couple school administrators. They happen to be there. We use them as role players. But this is just going to give you a little bit of an insight of the type of training Carmel Police Department does and how we apply that. And to let you know what you're going to see here, that was our standard training for the department. We went back with the school resource unit and had 2 full days, so another 16 hours of intense training, just like what you're going to see here. Because if something does happen in our schools, that school resource officer is the main person who's going to respond to that. Quite often, it's going to be over before the backup arrives. So we push that bar upon our SROs to raise their level of training higher than just your standard officer.
This week, the Carmel Police Department is going through hours of active shooter training.
Yeah, today the department invited our cameras along to see a scenario inside a local elementary school. Fox 59's Eric Graves shows us how officers prepare for one of the worst incidents imaginable.
Victim's good. Index! This is what active shooter training looks like for the Carmel Police Department. Officers running through real-life scenarios with fake ammunition and people role-playing as the shooter and those that are in danger.
Carmel arriving, door number 8.
It's the sights and sounds of a school shooting. Gunfire blasted through speakers. Help! Help! Actors yelling for help and a bad guy to take down. All simulated inside this Carmel elementary school.
People want to know that their police departments, their first responders, are well prepared to handle a situation like this.
This training happens every year, but following the string of mass shootings across the country, Lieutenant Tim Byrne with the Carmel Police wanted people to know officers are ready should something similar happen here.
Help! Help! He's in here! He's in here! Help! Let me see your hands! Drop the weapon! Drop the weapon!
Byrne says there is no hesitation from officers when it comes to the immediate response to an active shooter situation.
Our officers are given not only the ability, but they're required to respond immediately and directly to the threat.
Every Carmel officer takes part in the training this week. Single officers or teams are thrown into several different scenarios with very little information ahead of time.
Because it replicates exactly what you might be feeling in the real moment.
I'm with you!
Sergeant Ben Fisher is the training supervisor with Carmel PD. For the exercises, officers use simulated ammunition and gear they would be wearing for the real deal.
We'll get fire coming at the police officers as well as fire going towards the bad guy potentially, because that's as real as we can make it.
Through the 20-plus years Carmel PD has been doing these exercises, Burns says they've begun to train officers to treat victims as quickly as possible.
The faster we can get in there and start rendering aid to those folks, the better chance of survival that they have.
While these officers train, Burns says it's important for everyone to be prepared for what to do in an active shooter situation.
Drop your gun. Drop your gun.
It can happen anywhere. It literally can happen anywhere.
Lieutenant Burns says there are great resources for how people should respond to an active shooter situation on the FBI website. We have a link to those on our website. In Carmel, Eric Graves, Fox 59 News.
I also want to impress, so when we go to our state conferences and our national conferences, we get a chance to talk to SROs from other departments. Sometimes I think we take for granted what we have here in Carmel until we start talking about other agencies and we talk about this. There's a lot of departments that don't have this level of training available to them and the way we take it seriously. So you saw there with the tourniquets, and I do want to add, she's not here tonight, Sergeant Meg Saltz, one of our new sergeants. She's actually a paramedic instructor. She's going to turn around and train all the SROs. We're going to be Stop the Bleed instructors. So we can now take that knowledge and pass that along to all the staff at our schools. So you're getting that kind of enhanced training from us into the schools that I think is second to none. I also want to mention the MOU we have with Carmel Clay Schools. I've had several agencies from around the state hit me up about that because word has gotten out that we have a really good thing going here and they want to find out what the secret to our success is. So I'm getting departments reaching out to us because they see what Carmel Clay Schools and what the Carmel Police Department have done in creating the school resource unit. So again, I want to share that it's definitely, we're trying to set the bar higher and higher and trying to be that gold standard for school resource officers. Something we do to keep our staff and students safe, we teach something called ALICE. It's an acronym for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. So we really teach an options-based response to a threat. We don't want to always say active shooter because it could be somebody with a knife, it could be somebody with any other type of weapon. And we empower, the big thing we've talked about earlier is the empowerment piece. If we study, and we spend a lot of time studying what happens at other tragedies, and to find out how can we avoid that here in Carmel. It's nearly impossible to prevent any type of tragedy from happening, but we can prepare to mitigate that by training our staff to minimize the effects. And this is one of those things where we teach it to, we don't want them to be rigid. We definitely don't want them to freeze and hide under a desk. We don't want them to have to follow an outline necessarily. We empower them. We teach them the tools to use to keep themselves safe, keep the kids safe, and get out of there. If we look at like what happened in Greenwood Park Mall a few weeks ago, it's not just in our schools. What if they're in the food court at a mall and something like this happens? So we're training these kids, the staff, to be able to keep themselves safe and others safe in other environments as well. If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to have our SROs come on up, and they're going to briefly tell you who they are, what school they're at, and give you an idea of how much experience they have. This is their favorite part of the night.
Here we go. Test. Hi, I'm Matthew Broadnax. I'm the school resource officer at Carmel Middle School.
I'm Officer Greg DeWald. I'm at Clay Middle School.
I'm Officer Matt Harris. I'm at Prairie Trace Elementary.
Officer Luke Gossett. I'm at Clay Center Elementary.
Blake Lytle. I'm at Carmel High School.
I am Officer Victor Garcia. I am at Forestdale Elementary.
I'm Officer Juan Navarrete. I'm at Mohawk Trails Elementary School. 10 years in Carmel.
Officer Hunter Rogowski. I'm at Carmel High School.
Christian Rodriguez, SRO, Carmel High School.
Jason Gilmore, and I'm at Smoky Row Elementary.
Dustin Van Treese, I'm at Creekside Middle School.
Greg Zimmerman, Town Meadow Elementary.
Chris Wolak, Carmel Elementary.
Officer Molly Gregory, Cherry Tree Elementary.
Ashley Commodore, Woodbrook Elementary.
Officer Dave Commodore, Collegewood Elementary.
Sergeant Troy Smith, and I'm one of the supervisors of the unit. I'm all over all the schools.
And I do want to point out we have 3 members that couldn't be with us tonight for either sick or previous engagements. Sarah Livingston is at West Clay Elementary. Ashley Williams is at the high school, and Sergeant Meg Saltz, who's one of our new sergeants, who is also supervising the unit. And I want to point out that the Commodores are expecting their first child. That's why Ashley is dressed a little bit different than us.
Three years of working up towards this, hundreds of hours of training, and this is really a huge moment. We now have an SRO in every school building throughout Carmel Clay Schools. For a school corporation our size, it's almost unprecedented. So it's an amazing an accomplishment, and I just appreciate them all. So again, if we can let them know. So we talked about training. We talked about collaboration with Carmel Fire Department. We talked about collaboration with Carmel Police Department. We also want to collaborate with our community. And so we have an anonymous reporting system. We allow anyone in our community, any kids, any staff, any parents, to report concerns to our school corporation regarding safety. They can do it absolutely anonymously via an app. It's called Stop It. You see the stats up there. We've had almost 7,000 activations of the app. That's people who have downloaded it. Over 2,000 anonymous reports. That's 2,000 times my phone rang and these guys' phones have rang, usually after hours. And so offering that to our community, I can tell you it has saved lives. And I'm not talking necessarily about violence, I'm talking about self-harm. We know for a fact that several times our officers have intervened with students who in that moment were planning and had a plan and working towards following through with that plan to hurt themselves. So we know that this has been effective. So that partnership with the community is extremely valuable. We also provide a parent resource center for all of our parents. Everything from bus safety, from social media, vaping and dangers there. We push this content out, and we push it out frequently because we have that philosophy, well-trained staff, student body, and it's a drip, drip, drip philosophy that Dr. Beresford has really brought to our school corporation. Continue to push it out in multiple ways, multiple times. I would be a fool if I told you that I knew of every safety gap in Carmel Clay schools. Frankly, I don't. But I have an army of parents and an army of students, and when they see something, we want them to say something. The Stop It app is part of it, but we also historically have provided a Parent Safety Academy. Now, this was put on hold during COVID for obvious reasons, getting people together and the spacing and on and on. We're bringing that back this fall. And that's an opportunity to train our parents the fundamentals of school safety, but then we provide scenarios to them and get their feedback. And usually it's scenarios where we might need to tighten things up or loosen things up with regards to safety, and we get parent input, and it really has guided a lot of what we do with regards to school safety. The sessions are tentative for November of this year, but it'll certainly be this semester, and it will go out online once registrations are available. Also, our SROs collaborate fantastically with our students. We know that they've had safety teams in the buildings. We know that they've had student safety teams. Again, collaborating with fire, police, students, the community, having that well-trained staff and student body, having a well-trained community, that's our goal, and that's what we're going to continue to work towards. We still have more to do. I mean, frankly, it's in the details. Big picture, I don't think we could be prouder of where we're at. But when you ignore the details, that's when trouble comes. So right now, we're really talking about quality control, making sure that we have everything that we need and making sure we're following up in the way that we should. So we're going to continue to do all of that this year. Hopefully next year, I'll even have more information to provide you with more and more success stories. Any questions from the board?
I'm sure we do, but first I just want to say immense gratitude. Thank you so much, Dr. I keep giving you a doctorate. David Woodward, Adam Miller, SROs, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are so glad that you are part of this district. All right, I will hand it over for board questions.
I'm also huge thank you. And I'm sure there'll be several other questions. My first question is, well, actually a statement. I love the video that you and your team put together. And I think there's a lot of, good nuggets in there for the general population. So how are we using that video? I think if we had it on our website for parents, I like the idea that we reinforce that you don't let your neighbor come in too, even though you know your neighbor. And from the entire thing, that's really what I picked up on, because I think I commonly just feel like, oh, I explain to people, I'm like, oh, you can't come in with me, I'm so sorry. It's a rule. And they give me such a funky look.
Yeah.
But at any rate, I like that you brought that out and everybody comes through the front door, and I thought it was a really good tutorial for parents and visitors. So anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, so the video actually, it's on our website now, and it's been shared via social, but what we did recently was we shared it with all of the school buildings, and so as they put out their newsletter, that's content for them as well to share within their school.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your program. And I did have a question for the Parent Safety Academy. Is the Stop the Bleed training ever going to be present, part of that? Because I know we did it at our funeral home, and it was very well attended and received, and it's great training. It would be something one should do continuously.
So we've done a couple versions of it. In one, we did do the Stop the Bleed training, and in another, we didn't. So I think that's really good feedback. I also think it's a good idea that we push out more of that as a standalone training. And so Hamilton County, it's actually Jim Ginder, who works with us quite a bit, does that training. And every time that comes, actually Emily's done a good job of pushing that out via social media. But we can host even more of those as we go forward. I think Sergeant Meg Stoltz is going to be an amazing addition to the team. because of her specialty in that training.
I don't really have a question, more of a comment. Week before last, my son and my husband, we were at the Dallas Love Field Airport when the shooting happened. Our son is 13 and he goes to Creekside. Just watching the video just became even more real for me, seeing that. But, I'm grateful that you're at our schools and, you're standing at attention at all times. But I just wanted to let you know, there's a 13-year-old boy that is looking for you, if anything like that were to transpire again. I know he's very sensitive to that right now. So just thank you for that. And I just want you to know it's very fresh for me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Mr. Kirshner, did you have something?
Yeah, well, I mean, following that, I just think it's important to emphasize that it can happen anywhere. And unfortunately, it's happened in our community where we always say, it's not going to happen here. I do also want to put a plug in for the Parent Safety Academy. I've attended. It is great from both sides, and I really appreciate that. And then I echo the thank you from President Browning to all those in the room, to the police department, to the mayor, and all the way to our community who voted to tax themselves. And this was what got it passed, an SRO in every building. And our community voted to tax themselves to do that. So we appreciate you and we thank you for what you do every day. And we don't say that enough. So from me and from your whole community, thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
I can't help myself but have to say something, sorry. But I just want to do a shout out to Dave Woodward. We were lucky to have him join our team, and he's really taken our school safety to another level. And as you can tell, he's always what's next. He's always what's next, and that relentlessness is a quality that we really appreciate about David and Adam too, and all the leadership. I want to tell you that what's in this room tonight is a dream come true. My whole career, and I'm starting year 40 right now, my whole career, school safety has always been a percentage of somebody's job. It's like when I was assistant principal, a percentage of my job was school safety. We did not have a school resource officer in our school. And that's been consistent over many, many years. And this year, for the first time, at least in my career, there will be a person in every school who has one job, and their whole focus is on safety. And when David said all hazards approach, it just made my heart thump, because we've got a professional, well-trained person whose one job is to dig into that school and those kids, and get to know people, know the teachers, know the staff, and it's personal. This is where my job is to be that person here, and I've gotten to know these guys a little bit, these gals and girls a little bit, and I got to tell you, the personality matches are kind of spooky. I mean, the junior high guys are definitely perfect for junior high, and the personality piece of it, because this is a different kind of policing. This isn't. This is relationship building. It's getting to know people. It's trying to find out how they can help people and identify kids that need a hand. It's just a different kind of policing. It's so personal and so real. And so anyhow, I'm just from the old guy. Man, this is a dream come true, and I appreciate what you guys have done, and I can't wait to see the results from as the year goes by. And I thank you for your commitment to the kids and the staff and the families of Carmel, and I just can't wait to see the great things that happen. Last thing I'll say is what you saw in this presentation was layers and layers and layers and layers of school safety, and that's what it takes. But if you had to boil it all down, we have to pull together as a people, and when we see something, we got to say something. We have to do something about it. In every one of these scenarios where there's trouble, somebody knew something, and so that communication and that working together and everybody taking the responsibility that safety is everybody's business, and then having a point person, to go to, I think this can really be something special. And one thing we're pretty solid on is we want to be the best at getting better. And so we'll always be working that. But hey, dream come true tonight. So appreciate you folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will now move on to our Carmel Clay School Strategic Plan. Dr. Michael Beresford.
I can't believe you guys didn't want to stay for my presentation. I mean, no, it's, we got to practice this school. Hey, Matthew's here? Okay, well, I'll take it. I'll still take it. Thank you. No, it's been a big night, and I'll try to keep it quick. But in November, I came to you and gave you the first round of the strategic plan that we just finished up our last one, and we're rolling on to the next 3 years. And before I get started, I just want to talk a little bit about strategic plans in general. And the main reason for a strategic plan is to communicate organizational and departmental goals for the next 3 years. And it's 3 years, so we don't have we can't like forecast the future. And, we didn't, when we made the last plan, we didn't, have in the plan that we'd be trying to work through a pandemic for 2 of those years. And we didn't, we can't predict it. So it is a framework, and we'll work through that framework as we go. Along with what our goals are, our strategic goals are, we're going to provide some strategies on how we intend to implement those goals. And those are guideposts, for measuring achievements and trying to find what what kind of information can we use to see how we're doing. And then finally, it's an overview, kind of at a 30,000-foot level of what are our objectives, our departmental priorities, and those may shift based on what happens as we go. So in other words, it's a strategic plan, but it's not a checkbox. We're going to do this, that, and that, and the other. It's more of about what do we want to accomplish and how are we going to get there. I'm fortunate to work with a lot of really smart professionals, and this has been a team effort to pull this together. And I think that the work that's gone into it is very thoughtful and real smart. So with that, I'll start getting going. So we have 4 strategic areas. First one is student learning. Second one is student support, which you heard a lot about that tonight. Employee growth and satisfaction. And then enhanced operations, the daily operations of the district. So we'll start with student learning. So our first strategic goal is to ensure that all students have rigorous and differentiated learning opportunities with an enhanced focus on literacy, mathematics, and career technical programming to meet the individual needs and have necessary skills and abilities to be college and/or career ready. So you probably noticed some of those words in there: literacy, mathematics, and the career technical programming, because we've already kind of started working on kind of some foundations of that. So that, of course, is going to be our #1 priority in student learning. All student learning is important. These are areas of focus that we've identified as places we want to do better. Integrate authentic assessment measures to ensure greater relevance for students, promoting achievement, and accurately communicating what students have learned. And we've always started this process going on. And that's looking at how do we measure student achievement, and then how do we know if kids are on it or if they're off of it. And if they need off of it, how are we going to support that? And then finally, we want to close achievement gaps by ensuring student engagement, by eliminating barriers so students can have access to rigorous content and the support needed to be successful. So in other words, if a student isn't achieving at a level, we want to know why, and then we want to put supports in place to make that happen. The thing about achievement gaps is we want to close all of them, but it's a moving target because sometimes there'll be a gap in one spot. We close that gap, it'll open in another spot. So it's really a continuous monitoring of how our students are achieving and then looking for trends and then seeing what do we need to do to close that gap. So let's talk about some strategic examples. So here's some examples of things we will do about it. Systematic instruction in phonological and phonemic awareness. We've heard a little bit about that in our early literacy programming. We've had a lot of conversation this year about foundations, and there's this science of reading, and reading comprehension has just grown and grown, and we're responding to that with materials that are coming out. So Amy and her team have been working on that systematic instruction and how we can really put our kids in a good position at a very young age all the way through high school. We want to implement structures for responsive instruction literacy. So if a kid is falling behind, or maybe we've identified a problem, it could be dyslexia, it could be something else, how do we identify it early, and how do we get help and support to that student? Also, we're going to complete a K-12 math program evaluation. As you recall, we just started that math evaluation, and that's a very long and tedious process that Carmel Clay has done for years and years when they do program evaluation. And then the end of that, we will be adopting materials to match that research and programming. Conduct research and training and authentic assessment practices. That goes back to that strategic goal. And then a strong data culture that ensures the use of data to inform instruction and planning. So we're working on what information do we have and how can we use that information strategically to then make actions to inform our instruction plan, so teachers can look at that and say, what are my next steps? What do I need to do? And then developing a system of multiple data points to early identify students who may need additional supports to be successful. And that's a project that's we've been working on and have just been starting kind of on the ground floor of that. We collect a lot of different kinds of information, and our challenge is to be, how do you put that information all into one place and use those, those data points to determine what early that a student may be falling behind or a student may be struggling for some reason or another, and then what kind of intervention can we put in place in order to help that student. And what we're trying to establish by working this issue is how can we do that quickly so that a student won't get farther and farther behind before we can intervene. And finally, provide professional development for staff to ensure identity-safe learning environments to increase student engagement. And I've said this to you all before, but a wise board member I had one time said, Dr. Beresford, I don't think we have an achievement gap, we have an engagement gap. We have kids that aren't engaging with what we have to offer them for one reason or another. So we have to find ways to knock down the barriers so they can be engaged in the learning, because we've got a good program. It's just, why aren't they getting into it? And that's always stuck with me over many, many years. And so that's kind of a pushing point for us, is how can every kid feel comfortable, feel engaged, feel purposeful in their classroom so they can learn at the highest level possible. So here's some key measures. Of course, will be formative and summative assessment data. We do a lot of academic assessments. Program evaluation, research, and findings, when we mentioned that. Curriculum development and responsive to findings. And Amy showed you that before, that cycle that they use in program evaluation. Development and evaluation of assessment strategy and outcomes. That's when we're looking at making sure that we're doing authentic assessment. Development of systems to monitor achievement, identify gaps, provide early intervention and re-engagement. And that's that whole, that's what I just talked about in a nutshell. And then what I did was, at each one of these, I want to say, well, what guiding principles does this pertain to? And in this section, it pertains to that students are always in the center of every decision. We realize a safe, non-threatening learning environment is essential. Students' academic, social, emotional, and physical needs must be addressed. It's hard to learn if you have a gap in any of those areas. Students and employees excel when held to high personal standards and expectations. Effective teaching and learning requires continuous improvement. Diverse opportunities benefit all students. And finally, parent and community involvement enhances student learning. And that is our student learning strategic plan. After that, we're going into student support, so we'll go in a little different direction. And these are our strategic goals for this section. Ensure that all students experience a safe and supportive environment that's responsive to the needs of each student. So really here we're focusing on the environment. Ensure all students' social and emotional needs are met and supported. Ensure that access to mental health supports for students and families. And finally, student services are going to serve as a resource for families with school concerns or families who are in need of assistance. So, how are we going to do it? Well, number one, we're going to, in the world of safety, and you saw a lot of this tonight, so I'm going to kind of go fast through this slide. Continuous improvement in that safety plan. Staff and student training. Implementation of that unit that just walked out. Access control enhancements. This one, David doesn't like to talk about much, but refinement of technological safety enhancements would be things that we are using technology to keep our kids safe. And we don't talk much about it because it's pretty confidential information. And then parent training on safety protocols, which you heard about as well. Let's talk about mental health. Monitoring and refinement of the contractual mental health services that we have, and we'll bring we've brought reports to you from that before. Another piece is pandemic recovery, and so we noted and had a lot of data and examples of students who came back that were having mental health issues, so maybe some anxiety issues, and also some had behavioral issues, and then needed extra support. And we're still cycling through that at this point. Suicide prevention training and response protocols. And then development of a formal process for collaboration with local agencies to improve outcomes for students facing adverse life circumstances. And what this is about is students that are struggling or families that are struggling, and we'll see it at the schools that also might see that with the police department, might see it with the fire department, might see it with probation. There's a lot of services, like our Carmel Youth Assistance Program. And the question is, how do we pull everybody together in order that we can collaborate with all the local agencies, and then we can use our resources together to make a difference in the lives of these kids and maybe their families. Here's some measures. Of course, monthly drill tracking, staff and student training cycles. You heard a lot about this. There's the SROs, mental health services data collection and refinement. So we collect a lot of data on what kind of things the diagnoses that the counselors are making, the therapists that work for Ascension St. Vincent, and then we look at that and see, is there other, do we need to make other supports available to cover those. Stop It app, Dave talked about we get a lot of information from those Stop It apps and the tips that we receive. Guiding principles. I will not read them over again. And now we'll move on to employee growth and satisfaction. So, in the world of our employees and how we support our staff, our first goal is to creatively recruit, hire, onboard, and retain a diverse and premier staff. It's always our number one aim, and I've shared with administrators, I don't know if there's anything we do that is more important than hire a teacher, and then the other staff members that support that moment when a kid meets their teacher. And that's what we call the point of contact, and that's where all of our arrows are pointing, is to make that a special time. Implementation of the new talent development evaluation system for teachers, and we've had some reports on that from Dr. Osterreich. We really think that's going to make a big positive impact on our staff and really work us more towards professional achievement and growth as a professional, rather than a rating or a score. And then provide enhanced professional development training for all staff, and continue the positive relationship with the Carmel Teachers Association. So those are our four big goals. So the strategic examples for that recruitment area is cultivating teacher pipelines, partnerships with universities, and Dr. Rose talked about that a little bit, about different universities that we're partnering with while students are in undergraduates in education and getting to come to our schools and work a bit. Recruitment at historically black colleges and universities, we'd like to increase the diversity of our staff, and this may be a pathway to do that. Targeted messaging to employee candidates, and that's not always, that's just certified, but also our classified staff. And we've had some pretty good successes with that with Mrs. Coover, just doing targeted messaging when we have an opening. Expanded use of applicant tracking system, and that's the online tool that we use for applications. We really do a lot of different works and pieces that goes through that, and it's also a great tool that we can use to gather data. Enhanced marketing and promotion of CCS as an employer. You've seen a lot of information and content being pumped out by Emily and also by our HR division. Targeted job fair recruitment. Examples that would be the Drive a Bus event. Most recently, we had the non-certified job fair at Clay Middle School that was just phenomenal, and we had a lot of openings before it, and we had not as many afterwards. It was very successful. Enhanced and efficient onboarding process for new employees. And I'll give a kudos to our human resources staff. They're really going to, after a new record of customer service and walking alongside people and making sure that to make that process go as smoothly and to help them as much as possible. Retention and development. Carmel Teachers Association collaboration in bargaining and the teacher handbook review. So that's maybe more nuts and bolts, but it's a very important piece, and we love that relationship with our Teachers Association. Evaluation training for staff and supervisors, and that's been going on all summer as we roll that out to just elementary teachers and elementary administration this year, and we're looking forward to that. It's been very positive so far. Specialized professional development as needed. We have a lot of different jobs in this district. We have over, what do we have about, what's our number of employees now? 2,200-ish. And a lot of them are very specific jobs that need specialized professional development. Continued refinement of our compliance training processes, and that goes on every year. And still working on that and seeing how we can make it better and more efficient for our people. Processes to ensure an identity-safe workplace, so making sure that people are feeling included and getting equitable treatment. Talent development evaluation system we've talked about. Now this is a good one, which is we're really, I think, winning some of the struggles with the staffing issues is our wellness center and benefits promotions. And I could talk just a little bit about that. I'm just going to give a little plug for one of the instances that Roger came up with this thing. I'll talk about it more on his slides, but it was about managing your money. It's that money, we call it financial wellness. And did you know that we have, our teachers have gotten over $1 million of loan forgiveness by working through this financial wellness piece. And right now we're on track to save teachers almost $2.5 million of loan forgiveness programming just through this alone. So but our wellness program and the wellness pieces are really playing off well in getting staff to want to come here and then want to stay here. And then continuous improvement of customer service. It's a real positive crew in there. So key measures. Applicant tracking data, exit interviews, customer service feedback, training system data, that's when we talk about our compliance training, spiral review of policy, processes, and procedures, market surveys, and then our guiding principles. We have quite a few employee pieces in there. And of course, fiscal responsibility being fundamental to that piece of the pie. And finally, enhanced operations. And enhanced operation, it covers a lot of different spaces, so I'll try to break it down. But here's our goals. One is continuous improvement and refinement of daily operations. The more efficient we are and the more service-oriented we are, the better off we'll be. Flexible long-term financial planning, and so that's a nod to Mr. McMichael and his department. They have such a complex job with predicting what's going to be 3 years ahead, so we have to have some flexibility, and they do a good job with that. But we have to keep that in our in the front end of everything we do. Long-term planning and maintenance, design, and physical improvements of facilities, and we've seen that with our long-term facilities planning. Enhancement of technology services, cybersecurity, data privacy, and communication processes. So that's kind of a double mix there of how we're using our technology and then also how that works into our communication processes. And here's the strategic examples for facilities. And these are pretty easy to identify, just Carmel High School. And we have the fine arts piece going on right now. We have the auditorium piece going on right now. And we have the stadium yet to come. So we got some work going on there. Most of these areas haven't been touched since the 90s, like early 90s. And so they're in desperate need of some repair and some pieces. So it's and they're going well. This building actually got a little facelift and added some offices. And then the CLC has got some work going on there, especially I think it's more of a HVAC and some of the systems there. So there's some pieces there. You've heard Mr. McMichael talk about mid-cycle renovations, which is a brilliant strategy to keep all of our schools up and looking fresh, but also knocks out it's a lot of preventative maintenance where you can fix things before they get really bad. And then long-term facility updates and renovation. That's when we do schools that are in need of some major work where we do a little bit at a time. Now, what's really important about this strategy is that, there's some places where they'll just let all the schools kind of, mature and get to a point where then they have to do a referendum or they have to raise $500 million or $600 million to fix all the schools all at once. Where this approach here has been to target and do little pieces each year. And that way you can maintain a good tax base and you're not having to ask for a big ask. It really is just part of the program and keep it steady, which is a very strong thing as a tradition here in Carmel Clay. And here's the staff well-being. In response to need, increased mental health and physician services. This is already going on to get a little more hours from a physician and also some more hours in our mental health services. Increased wellness center participation. So you've got some participation goals. Increased fitness center participation. Expand our financial wellness services, and that's what I just talked about. And then identifying centers of excellence for certain major medical issues. And I think Mr. McMichael talked about this a little bit with you, but it's like we've got a center of excellence where we're having ortho surgeries done, which is saving the employee money and also saving the district money. And as we look down through this list right here, this actually has a financial impact. And I think we had a report, it might have been a couple of years ago, where we compared our overall health and well-being of our faculty with other places and then with national trending, and we were well under that. And so there is actually a savings that comes from folks taking care of themselves and us getting to work with them earlier before something a bigger problem develops. And then technology and communications. So we've talked a little bit about cybersecurity, and you guys have our emails. You know about the phishing exercises. But we want to continue to harden and strengthen our network environment, continue staff training, implementation of recommendations in real time from security experts. So we are in communication with all kinds of organizations that when there's a threat, we can immediately in real time do something about it. And this is going to be an ongoing issue, I think. We have we are now going for what's called a Trusted Learning Environment certification. And I think we've talked about that a little bit with you too, but we hired a data privacy specialist to lead our implementation of the Trusted Learning Environment. And what that is making sure that our student and employee data is secure. And so that's personal identifiable information. A lot of this work that's being done right now is just looking at the contracts of packages and apps that we use educationally for the district and making sure that we know that the information gathered through those apps and those processes are secure. And they're making great the person that we hired for that's making great progress. And then we're also working towards the development of a data privacy platform so that the public can actually go into that platform and see what exactly is available and the pieces to that. So that's a really a big thing that we want to accomplish over the next 3 years. And then the review of existing communication products. So analyze our communication pathways for effectiveness, train staff on best practice of school-to-home communications, enhance messaging through various platforms to engage our families, increase utilization of web resources. We've put out more content and more information on our web services in the last year than I think we've done the other 3 years I've been here. So that's an area where we're growing, but we also want to be smart and see what is the best ways to communicate. So that's kind of a mix between technology and Emily's piece of that pie. So here's some examples in finance. Maintenance of the cash balances, metrics, and various funds. You've heard Roger talk about how we'd like a cash balance of this percentage in this fund and this percentage in that fund. Continue to maintain a level tax rate, which we've been able to do for several years. Manage our debt service metrics. There's a lot of law in debt service on what kind of cash balance you have to have and what margins you need to do to take out a debt or a loan or bonds. It was what we use most. Of course, CTA collaboration bargaining. This year is the going to be the biennium where they determine the budget for the next 2 years for schools. And so once that information gets through, we'll go into bargaining and working on that 2023 to 2025 agreement. So hopefully for a 2-year agreement there. Continued development of our employee wellness programming. Operating referendum renewal, that's coming. And so we'll start working on that. We're very fortunate to have a community that supports our learning and our schools with an operating referendum. We're going to continue the refinement of internal controls. And then the implementation of automatic time and attendance system. That's one of those where we're trying to improve our efficiency in operations. Key measures, monthly reporting and monitoring of short and long-term building projects. I give you that spreadsheet every month. Mr. McMichael's monthly financial data reviews, employee wellness data compared to medical trend data, comprehensive savings data from the wellness initiatives I talked about briefly, progress monitoring towards the trusted learning environment standards, and you'll hear some more about that. And then analytics data and feedback on our communication, website, other technological communication usage. And then the guiding principles. And finally, fiscal responsibility. And that is, in record time, the strategic plan presentation. And I can answer any questions you might have, or and I know it's a lot of information, so I welcome your feedback. Our next steps would be to kind of moralize this and set it up on our website so that we can watch our progress, monitor our progress on these goals.
Thank you so much, and to your team for all the hard work. Board questions?
So my question around the strategic plan, which thank you very much. I think it's very comprehensive, and it does, each of the highlighted areas are, I guess, much needed areas that deserve a lot of attention. To ensure that the board and the community are in sync with the progress, are you and our, are you working with Katie or any board president in the future to outline how we're going to present with reports and workshop topics so we can monitor progress?
Yes, and that's kind of what we did the last 3 years, where we did different workshops on different aspects of that. First off, just to have an ongoing visual of what progress is like. We're going to do similar where we're going to put this on the website so you can look at the progress on each of these goals, and the strategies there'll be the goal, then the strategies, and then we will have probably a graphic where we'll show where we feel like 25% of this goal's been met, 50% of this, 75%, and this goal's been, it's be more about the strategies more than the goals, I would guess. But we'll use that metric. But yeah, we will continue to provide you with that information as we go forward.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Could you say a little bit more about authentic assessment? What does that look like? What does it not look like? Just educate us on what that means.
Yeah, authentic assessment is, I'll probably tell you what it isn't, but a lot of times you'll hear things about grade inflation and, or sometimes have you ever had one of your kids or sometimes a student come home, or maybe you've experienced where you say, I got a B, but I don't know why, When you talk about grades and assessments, the key part of assessment is to be able to measure what a kid knows, like did what this teacher, what was meant, the objectives of the lesson, did they master that? And then we come up with different ways to measure that. And when we talk about authentic assessment, it's just that, are we doing that, based on what criteria? So you might talk about a rubric, and so a rubric where a student knows that if you do these things, you're going to score, you're going to be proficient, or you're going to have mastered it, which would be like an A maybe. Or if you almost did everything but not quite, or you did the bare minimum, or you really didn't, you're really not grasping the whole concept here and didn't. That would be an example of maybe one way of measuring a kid's proficiency in whatever the objective of the lesson is. Amy, do you want to kind of kick in on some of that?
Yeah, I would just add.
Dr. B, how often do we report on how we're doing with the strategic plan? Like, what's the cadence?
That's kind of up to us.
Okay.
As you can tell, it's covering a lot of different areas, and a lot of those areas intermingle. So, there's a human resources component that works with finance, and there's a lot of pieces that kind of go back and forth. But it's kind of up to the board as to how often you want to hear specifically about the plan. But it tends to be that we report more on the different pieces as we go over time. When I was working on this, we went back and looked at the one we did 3 years ago, and I was kind of excited about it because we've come a long way, and we hit almost all of our marks. Tonight was actually one of them, where we were able to get the resource officers in every school. So, but that's as far as how rarely we want to do that. That could be an agenda setting kind of a piece. But I think when I look back at the last 3 years, we've hit on a lot of the pieces that were in our strategic plan, but it was really a piece at a time, and rather than a big smorgasbord of it.
Thank
That makes sense.
Any other questions? Again, thank you for your time and for your team's time in putting this together, and we look forward to learning more.
Well, I'm representing the team, so I'd love to take credit for all this, but I couldn't do, the whole of anything. But I'm working with a really talented group of leaders, and it's been, I'm just the luckiest guy on the planet to have that opportunity. So thank you.
All right. We will now move on to reports. You get to keep talking.
I just brought my superintendent's report with me just in case, because I thought you guys would be pretty tired by now. And everybody that's still here, thanks for going to the end. So, but I do want to just share, I think I'll just share with you just a couple of things. One is a big concern was the roundabout in front of Carmel High School. And we had a walkthrough meeting with the city and the construction people at 1 o'clock this afternoon, and I've got great news to report. It, all things point that will be open on Wednesday, and we'll be able to use the roundabout at Richland and Main Street. And it is not going to be, like spiffy finished, but it's going to be very usable. So I would say it'd be substantially complete. And they were cleaning the roads this afternoon as well. And they've got several pieces of like pedestrian sidewalks and that sort of thing to pour. But they've been working closely with the high school administration, and I think we'll be good to go on Wednesday. So your superintendent's blood pressure has gone back into the average range, and I think we're going to be okay there. So that was a great piece. That also affected Carmel Elementary School, and I think we'll be fine there as well. So you're going to see, I think, a big transformation in that area as we go through this first semester, because with the library, their project's getting almost complete. With all the roadways going through there and everything, it'll be a very different look. I think it'll be very exciting to see. So, the city's been great to work with on this, and we feel pretty good about Wednesday's first day. The other thing I wanted to share was just some things I shared with the staff, and I wrote them a little letter that I sent out. And first, I just wanted to welcome back our teachers. Today was the first teacher day, and so all the prep is going on. And of course, I've been driving by schools, the last couple of weeks, and there's always been cars in the parking lot. So I know that our teachers have been getting their classrooms ready and excited to see their new group of students. But I wanted to welcome back all the teachers, and hope they're rested up and ready for another 180 days of world changing. And I did share that we had a big summer of preparation, including our construction projects, filling open positions in an environment that was pretty tough. Problem-solving issues like we did at the board meeting, where we were trying to figure out how do you get to Carmel High School, with all the road closures. And I said, I just think we're ready to roll. I feel pretty good about where we are, and as I shared with a message to you, that my anxiety level goes up a little bit because I'm, it's the unknown. But I'm feeling better every day. And it's always exciting when the teachers come back, because that brings a lot of energy to the buildings and kind of come alive. And then when the students arrive, that's when the magic starts, and it's always a wonderful thing. So looking forward to Wednesday. But if you haven't heard, and this is I wanted to share with folks, is that I have a new theme, and I've shared that theme with the board. I've shared it with the administrative staff. And I thought I'd just go ahead and share it with the community. And every year I've come up with a theme for the year. And this year it's wag more and bark less. And I wanted to kind of explain it a little bit, because it's not probably news to you guys, but I'm a dog lover. And I've had a dog almost all my life. And I'm even now at a stage where I have granddogs. And so I've learned a lot from dogs over the years, and through thick and thin, happiness and sadness, successes and disappointments, all kinds of weird situations. There's one common thread when I arrive home and walk through the door, and that is that my dogs have always greeted me with enthusiasm, an occasional bark, and a whole lot of wag. And when I tried to describe the feelings associated with wag, I think of pure joy, excitement, genuine affection, and that kind of glad to see you attitude that makes you feel valued, connected, maybe engaged and loved. So, so in staying with the dog metaphor, the opposite expression is the bark. So while there may be some instances where you get a happy bark, but most barks are perceived to be kind of threatening, intimidating, mean, and sometimes they're a precursor to a painful bite that might be coming. And I think a case can be made that a bark may be needed at times. In other words, like if it comes to safety, or you have to get rare occasions where you have to get order or you have to get attention immediately. But I believe barks should be used sparingly, because constant barking becomes meaningless and sometimes kind of annoying. And I would also suggest that in regards to human barking, sometimes the bark is worse than the bite. And then I also wanted to remind our people that some kids are barked at a lot. And some have maybe even experienced those barks from people that should be wagging for them. So we have a unique opportunity to be wagging more and barking less. And so it came clear to me after the addition of Jim Dandy, our facility dog, that when he started with us last September, and so I thought, I want to bring Wag More and Bark Less back as my theme for this year. And as we're about to celebrate the anniversary of Jim's first year here in the office, it made the theme kind of even more special for me. So I hope that you all will embrace the notion and hold me and your colleagues accountable for the idea of wag more and bark less as we start the year, and do our best to wag all year long. So that's a challenge. We're going to wag all year long. And I think magical things will happen when our students experience our pure joy, excitement, genuine affection, and glad to see you expression that makes each student feel valued, connected, engaged, and loved. I don't know many districts that wag like CCS. We're pretty good at wagging. And I know that together, if we work together, we can spread this enthusiasm across the district from day 1 on Wednesday to day 180 as we go through the year. I also want to note that we know there'll be obstacles as we trek through, 22, 23. It's inevitable. I know that life happens, and many of our teammates will face difficult challenges throughout the year. So that makes wagging even a little bit more important, I think. So we'll wag for one another, because you never know how much your positive push and your encouragement, what a difference that can make in somebody who's struggling. So in closing, I just appreciate the dedication that our staff has, that you all have, and that our community really has, all of our parents and community. I can't thank everyone enough for your commitment. And I'm thankful and proud to be part of this organization. And I appreciate all that we do for the kids and families we serve. So my concluding statement is wag on. Let's do this. So that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beresford. All right. That concludes our meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.